Foles, 636 career appearances so far. Talk me through just a bit how you feel about having that many appearances to your name.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of appearances. That, to be fair, yeah. I just think I'm fortunate, really, to have just made a couple. Really, I think the journey that I had into the game was slightly different, and I always just wanted to play football and wanted to play in a stadium in front of fans and be a footballer. And to play one was great. But to play that many's, that's not many people do that, and I think it kind of drives me on a bit to let's see how far I can take this.
Yeah, I mean, that many appearances. Is there ever a moment which hit you where you go, "I've made it"? Like, I'm living the dream. I'm that professional footballer I aspired to be.
I think when I made my league debut, I probably, but thinking back now, it's probably not the right mentality to have. I played a lot in non-league when I was younger, and I've always wanted to play in the league. And when I got my opportunity, I remember thinking, this is it. This is where I want to be. I've played in the league, and I think as I got older, you kind of reassess your aims and aspirations. And I always wanted to play 500 games or get to 500 games. That was my aim, and I breezed past that. And then it was like, what's my next goal? Play to a certain age, and again, just breeze past that. So I've gone past all my expectations that I kind of had, and I'm just going game by game and week by week to see, what's in store for next for me.
Yeah, I mean, let's take you right to the back at the start of your football journey. As you just touched on there, it's a different experience. It's not the usual one. What was that experience for you?
I think it was difficult because I played with a lot of lads who were going and getting signed to professional clubs.
It's grassroots that you're
playing.
Yeah,
grassroots, yeah. And where I was playing was quite remote. It was quite similar to Barrow, but not as remote. But Herefordshire and Worcestershire, you're close enough to Birmingham and Bristol, but you're still quite far away, and there's no real professional clubs and academies. So I played for like a centre of excellence in Hereford, and we barely had enough players to make a centre of excellence, but I played for them. So it was representative football, and from the age of 12 to 15, 16, then it started to fold, and I played up at age at Bromyard Town, at Wellington Youth, went on trial everywhere. My dad was great, wrote letters to every football club in the Football League. He was a big Man United fan, so I don't think he wrote to Man United, but I think he wrote to everyone, and a lot of the clubs wrote back and said, thank you, we'll keep an eye, and a lot of them offered trials, so I was all over the country on trials. And that was kind of it, really, and I think that kind of built a fire that I was kind of seeing what these other kids had, and I didn't, and I was at an age it was difficult for clubs to go, we'll take them on a contract, because they've got kids they've had for years and years that they've worked with, so they're their priority. So it was difficult for me, and I think that kind of spurred me on a bit. And talking of letters, and I know because you spoke to me about this already, my dad wrote a letter to the then manager of Cheltenham, Bobby Gould, and he received the letter, and there was a few not white lies, but exaggerations on my footballing CV. He received the letter and went straight into the youth office and was like, I want this kid in on trial, and I went in, and in the end I ended up signing for him and signed a scholar and a professional deal, but it was too soon for me, really. I didn't know how to be a footballer. I was literally just knocking about with my mates for years on end, and then I dropped out and played non-league, and that's where my professional journey kind of began.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in non-league, I mean, I can only imagine in those days as well what it was like. What was that kind of experience like for you?
Well, it's a lot different now to what it used to be, but yeah, it was. I played Conference North and Conference South, and at the time it was the highest level of part-time football, because the National League was full-time clubs, but there's a lot of players who had good careers that didn't want to give them up to earn less money to be a professional footballer when they had a good career. So the level I was playing, there were some good players, but they were there because they enjoyed football, and predominantly they had jobs and careers that were their priority. So that was an eye-opener playing at that level, and it was more sort of their personalities that they had. They were just different to anything I'd ever experienced, and it helped me grow up a lot. But also on the pitch, the players were hard, and the tackles weren't always the nicest. It was just that it was the Wild West, I suppose, is probably the best way to kind of look at it.
Does it, when you've experienced that Wild West, so to speak, type of football, does it make you feel that when you eventually get to that next level that you're ready for it, you can do it because you've experienced that side of things?
Oh, it definitely prepares you for when times get hard. Sometimes the easiest thing is to go under, but when you've been in situations where you've got no choice but you have to stick your chest out, it prepares you for that. And I think especially nowadays, the way the game is with a lot of young players, I think a lot of it sometimes is all you got to do is just stand up and be counted, and that gets you over the edge. And coming from that background in non-league football, it's not just me, I think you see a lot of players do it. It kind of gives them that grounding and gives them that foundation that helps them excel.
Newport, the club where you've had the majority of your career appearances at, spent quite a few years there, promotions. What was it like just to be in that environment, playing every week and in a successful team as well?
Yeah, I think that was probably not just for me, but we had a good squad of players and we had quite a bit of success, and a lot of those players went on and had good careers in the Football League. And that season we had there, we were record breakers in the Conference South. We broke all the records for the most wins, most goals scored, the least conceded. So that was special, and you form a bond there. But I think it's quite similar. That time is quite similar to the club like Barrow have. There's a connection between the players and the supporters. It's a small club, and I think we had that at Newport. We were in the bar after the games. That's non-league. I'm not saying that's what we do here at Barrow, but there was definitely a connection, and I think that's quite similar to Barrow. But that connection helped the players and helped us success.
Newport, it must have been a move away from home for you. Yeovil, at home.
No, I stayed at home. I managed to stay at home. When I signed there, they were part-time, and it was about an hour 10 from my family home. So I stayed at home with my mum. Mum's cooking for another few years, so we'd travel down there. I signed originally as a part-time player, and then by the time I left, they were fully integrated into full-time, which is when I left for Yeovil, when I did move away and grow up.
Yeah, I mean, talk to me a bit about that. You're still quite young when you move away to Yeovil. It's quite a remote location as well.
Yep.
What was that experience like from that side of things?
Yeah, so that was obviously the first time I'd gone into the Football League, and the first time I'd lived away. And I remember one of my first few weeks of being in, someone was asking me, I think the coach was asking me how I was adapting to full-time professional football, and I was like, yeah, it's great. I come in, I train, I go to the gym, I go home, I cook my dinner and go to bed. And he said, that's the life of a professional footballer, which is probably something I wasn't living that life when I was living at home. I was messed about with my mates. I was probably wasn't the most professional in what I was doing in my diet and whatnot. But that Yeovil experience, being down there and having to stay there, and again we had a great time there. Our first year we exceeded all expectations on getting promoted to the Championship with the smallest squad, smallest budget. And again, that propelled players on to having great careers in the game, and some that are still going now, including me, somehow. And I don't think those other lads can believe that I'm still going, but we are. And I think that success helps propel your career, and it helped me.
Yeah, of course, Wembley experience there. You've gone up in the playoffs, you played in a playoff final there. From a player who didn't have a contract at 15, 16, playing non-league after then, to then being at a Wembley final, what emotions like on a day like that?
Yeah, it was. I'd come a long way in a short space of time. It was, but I don't think I was a rabbit in the headlights. I was just trying to take it all in for what it was. I think the fact that I knew where I'd come from and that it could go just like that, the click of a fingers. I was just going to make sure that I took it all in. I enjoyed it, and it was funny. I had this conversation recently with someone, and the playoff final we had Sheffield United, and the year before I'd actually been at Bramall Lane in the away end, watching a friend of mine play in the semi-final of the League One playoffs, and I'm thinking, oh, this is great! Like, what an occasion for him to play at a great stadium on that great pitch. And then a year later, that was me. So I think I wasn't overawed by the experience. And the year before the playoff final, I'd actually played at Wembley in the trophy final in front of 15,000, 20,000 supporters. So I'd already experienced it. I wasn't overawed, and winning at Wembley is the pinnacle, I think, of any footballer's career. I think at the time I didn't realise. I just thought, second time at Wembley and we've won. I just brushed it off. But I think there's some players that will play the whole career and not even make an appearance there. So I'm so fortunate to have had that on my CV.
And of course, very topical speaking about this game, because a man who scored a goal that day, Dan Burn, would you have expected him to go on to do things he's doing right now?
Yeah. At the time, probably not, because he was on the pitch with me. But watching his career, the way his career's gone, and played against him since then a couple of times, and he's done so well. But he's earned everything that he's got, and I'm not going to say I messaged him, but I think there's plenty more for him to give. And I'm just so proud of him, really. He's been an ex-teammate of mine. He was always a great mate. He still is. So and it's not just him. We've had Luke Ayling played in that team, and he's gone on and had a great career playing for Leeds in the Premier League. Joe Edwards is still playing in the Championship for Plymouth. So there's the majority of those lads have gone on and had a great career.
Is it a weird feeling when you play with players like that, like Dan Burn, like Luke Ayling, where you're playing with them, at the start in this League One team, and then you see them however many years on, in the Premier League?
I think sometimes you probably don't realise that you're not actually that far away from the very top. And speaking to Luke, it's something that he's said to me in the past. I think he was going, I can't believe he gets an email from the FA telling him not to go on holiday for international breaks just in case. He's never got called up, but he said those are the sort of things. And I think going back a few years ago, it's something he would have never dreamed of. But a bit of hard work and a bit of success can do that, and that's always what we strive for. And I think when you're younger, you probably don't realise that, but there always is a bigger picture, and if you add them all together, where does it take you?
I'm going to jump a few years now to 10 years ago. You signed for Port Vale in the summer of 2015. At the time, the manager was quoted saying that you were an experienced player. Does that feel weird to hear that now, 10 years on?
Yeah, it does, yeah. Because I don't think I was experienced. Rob Page was the manager. I'm sure he must have said versatile rather than experienced. I think experience of playing different positions, different levels. He's probably right. I know I wouldn't stretch to saying I was experienced back then. I'm probably still not now. I think I'm experienced now because I'm old enough to be these lads' dads. But
yeah, when I was doing my research, I was looking at, obviously, like you say, you're versatile. You've played every position you've started at, apart from left back, I think, on the football pitch, and goalkeeper, of course. How do you do that, to be that versatile? How would you pick up that many positions?
I don't know. Probably I have a willingness to learn, I suppose. I remember doing a coaching course, and there was a psychologist in, and he was like, why are you here? Why do you do things? And some of the lads were saying, to win. I think for me, the one thing that stuck out for me, I was interested, interested in the knowledge, and I think football's always something that I've always been interested in, and I've always wanted to play. And I know I'm smart enough to know sometimes if you play in a certain position and you don't deliver statistically X, Y, and Z, you'll be out of the team. So I think there's sometimes where I've kind of looked at it, how can I get onto the pitch? How can I stay on the pitch? How can I play as much as I can play? Because I just enjoy playing so much. So I think that's probably something I've always kind of looked at. I've always looked, how can I improve? How can I learn? Sometimes it's like, I can do that, or no, I can't do that. There's some things you can and can't do, and I think football's quite simple sometimes. I think at my age now, I'm not so much a position, I'm more of a situation, and I learned that over the last few years, especially coming off the bench last year and the year before. It's what's the situation, what does the game need? Sometimes when you start, it's difficult to do that, but off the bench, and I think now playing at the back, it's kind of like, well, what does the situation need? How can I affect it, and how can I use my skills to a positive way for the team?
And then after a long period in England, you then have a first taste of football abroad, apart from Newport, of course, up in Scotland. Why change from the Football League to go into the Scottish Prem?
Well, at the time, I'd left Northampton, and I was actually looking to move closer to home. We had a young family, and we have a young family still, but yeah, they were really young, the girls at the time, and I think it was just about moving back. And then yeah, I had an offer to go to St Mirren in Scotland, and it was a 2-year deal. They were going to pay for my accommodation, and the first 3 games were Hibs away, Aberdeen at home and Rangers at home. So I thought to myself, well, if it goes Pete Tong, at least I can say I've played against 3 big clubs really. So we decided to go up there. The kids were young enough, so my partner would travel up and stay up and go back down, and she works remotely, so she was fine with it. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. I honestly didn't realise how good Scottish football was. I know it's well supported. You obviously see the national team and see Rangers and Celtic, but all the clubs are well supported and they're all working class fans, which gives a real steel to the clubs and the people up there. And it was something I wish I'd probably done earlier in my career if I'd had the opportunity. But to go up there and experience it, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I mean, to brush shoulders with, like you say, Rangers, Celtic, some huge clubs, to be playing in the first division, of a country's football pyramid, that must be a really humbling experience, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it's playing at those grounds, the atmosphere, and all eyes are on you, and like you do feel quite humbling to think, how could I moan at things when I was back down the road playing in front of 2,000 people when this is here, and you're so privileged to have been there, and have the fans supporting you. So yeah, no, it was great, and to play at those great stadiums was brilliant.
And then of course I'm gonna rewind some more into life here at Barrow right now. Fast forward even. Really recently, you've got a good spell in the team, quite a long spell in the team at right centre half. What's that role been like for you?
Yeah, I've loved it. As I've said before, I just want to play and contribute to the team, and wherever that is on the pitch. And if I'm not contributing, I'll be the first one to hold my hand up and say I'm not being good enough. But the gaffer's trusted me. I don't know where that trust came from. He just kind of went have a go, and I think I'm kind of repaying him for the faith he's shown. But you've got a job to do as a professional footballer, and you've got a job to do as a teammate to do your best, regardless of what position, and do what's asked for. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm still learning the role, and which is crazy to think at my age that I'm still learning. Like I said, it's something I'm always open to.
I mean, it's quite a progressive right centre half role as well. Like when you say right centre back, you think like last year, for instance, that was George Ray's role. But in our system, actually, it's quite a progressive role where you find yourself up the other end of the pitch quite a few times.
Yeah. To Niall's dismay, I don't actually stay in that position much. I think it's probably my starting position, right side centre half. But if you've got the ball and you can go forward and you can pin teams back, I think the best form of defence is attack. So that obviously that number 10 that's deep inside me from 20 years ago is trying to get out, but he's getting held back by a 38-year-old experienced player.
With this time and success as well, because it's in terms of the performances, you've been right up in terms of that top performers in these last few weeks, last few months in that role. Does it feel like that potentially elongates your career even more, because that's again another thing which you can do and be successful at?
I don't know. That's a question for someone else, really. I think it was always something that I kind of wanted to do when I first went back there. When I was in Scotland at St Mirren, we had a defensive crisis, and the manager was like, "I'm gonna have to put you back at centre half because there's no one else." And I played so well, and I loved it. I remember walking in, I got man of the match after the game, and I felt like I was like Lionel Messi walking in the suite at the end, and it got me thinking, well, why can't I play there? And and I think having the career I've had, where no one thought I was actually going to make it as a professional footballer, well, why can't I? No one thought I could get here in the first place. Well, why can't I play in different positions, and why can't I play till I'm over 35 or older? Why not? And I think I'll ask the question. I'll keep asking the question until I'm ready to finish, really.
Like I say, 38 years of age right now. if someone said, what is the secret for you playing this long, playing this many games, you know, what do you do differently, I suppose?
I don't know. I don't know what I do differently. Just enjoy it. I just enjoy it. I try and live a healthy lifestyle, try and exercise, and I do reformer Pilates. That's all it is to it, really. And try live less stressed life, which is difficult with 2 young kids. But you know, I've got these lads keeping me on my toes. That's it for you, Ethan. I'm not giving you my secret.
And I'm taking you all the way back to when you're that 15, 16-year-old Sam Foley about to start professional football, start in the football scene. What would your advice to your younger self be?
Stop going out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop going out. I don't know. Actually, I probably wouldn't give him any advice. I think you always learn from your mistakes. I think I made plenty of mistakes, but I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't gone through those. So yeah, just crack on, young Sam. Keep doing it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Foles.
No, cheers.